We have a number of ideas and a number of pictures of homelessness. We have the poor unfortunate maybe that has got into addiction difficulties or family troubles, and they certainly exist in society. We know that only too well. And I certainly want to express my sympathies to the friends and family of Mr. Corrie, and I don't know anything about him, and I'm not attributing those characteristics to him, but he died, and it certainly puts a shame on all of us here. But there is one image of the homeless as well. But I'm told by local authority staff in County Meath that image is now not typical in County Meath of the people presenting for homelessness. I mean, what I was told today is that long gone is the average picture of the alcoholic or the drug addict presenting in Navan for homeless accommodation. The typical client of the emergency housing services in County Meath at the moment is the working poor. They are the typical client presenting to homeless services in County Meath. As of last week, 560 people in my own county presented as of homeless this year. 560 different people. And their circumstances are all different, but many of them are the working poor who can't afford rents, who can't afford to live in accommodation in their own county. And for many of them, of course, it's not their own county. They may have moved from Dublin where rents are even more expensive. In County Meath at the moment, Minister, there are only 4 houses available that come under any of the rental supplement thresholds. There's only 4, and they're 2-bed apartments in a rural town in North Meath and in a rural town in the south of the county. There are 2 of them that specifically state that rent supplement applicants can't apply. So there's only 2 altogether. There were 4. You take 2 off, not applicable to rent supplement. There is nothing out there for people to rent. The average rent in County Meath is nearly 50% higher than the rent supplement threshold, Minister. It's not possible to rent a property. There's nothing out there. There's a town in South County Meath where there was a man sleeping rough last night, and the homeless services are well aware of the situation. There was a family, and thankfully it was during the summer, who were living in a tent near a town in South County Meath during the summer, who I had to meet and attend to. They had to tell their child that they were on holidays because they'd been put out of their house. They couldn't afford the rent. And that's the reality of it. If we count housing costs, should be ideally 30% of net income. If you want to rent in the town of Ashbourne, you'd have to be earning €3,000 net a month. If you want to rent in Kells, and this is for your average family, maybe a 3-bedroom house, you'd want to be earning €2,373 a month, because your average rent in the town of Kells, of the 4 properties that are to let, $712 a month. You go to the dearest area for rent, there are 6 properties in Slane with an average rent of $1,125 per month. You'd want to be earning near $4,000 a month to make it 30% of your income to be able to afford that rent. But the typical person can't afford that. I know of a public servant who would be coming out with about $2,000 net per month, who cannot afford €1,000 per month in rent. They simply can't afford it. And in that particular town, there are only 2 properties to let anyway. I don't know what they accept rent supplement. That person, quite frankly, would be better off in social welfare at a higher cost to the rest of us. But that picture is changing. There are people all over the place now, Minister, who are getting notices now because rents are going up. They've been told, look, you're going to have to leave. I'm selling the house, or I'm going to relet it. They're, in most cases, getting the appropriate notice, and the landlord is entitled by law to put them out. But what do they do then? They ring up homeless services in a county like my own, in Navan, maybe they're from Dunboyne or from Kells, and they have to go elsewhere. And it's very, very difficult to house people. And I've seen families split up, maybe women put into a woman's shelter, and I've seen men sleeping on the floor of their parents' house, etc. And that's not as bad as it gets. But that's the picture now. Families are being split up. They cannot afford the rent, Minister, and we must supply urgently. And I'm not talking about a bonanza for developers. I mean, the government must play its part and treat this as really urgent. I think this is going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better. There's a huge problem of rough sleeping in Dublin, absolutely. There is some, certainly in my own county, but there's an even bigger problem in my own county of ordinary working families, people who are working, people who are experienced, people who are qualified, who cannot afford to live, who cannot afford rental properties. On the rent supplement, all of the organisations seem to be saying to you, you must put it up. I agree with them. Anyone who's getting the rent supplement in County Meath at the moment has to be falsifying the forms. I don't blame them. They have to be paying money under the counter to landlords because the properties are not available at the rent caps. That must be happening wholesale, Minister. But I understand that community welfare officers have discretion to increase the rent supplement out of the rules, but they don't do that, is what I'm told, in my experience. They generally don't do it, and certainly county council staff would tell me that they certainly can always justify expenditure on emergency accommodation. Why can't they? And then the same should apply in the Department of Social Welfare with community welfare officers, that they should be given a lot more discretion by their bosses in social welfare to increase that. Kildare, for example, was given an increase by the Minister. I'm not sure if it matches the levels of rent in Kildare and the rent supplement. Meath wasn't for some reason. But people are being squeezed out. They're being squeezed to depend on their collar financially, but they're being squeezed out of their homes. And when people ring me and ring other public representatives, we really don't know what to say to them. Yes, we make representations to the local authority, but if they don't have the houses to give out, what can be done? And that's where it comes back to. There must be houses. We must get supply in. We must get agencies dealing with each other more effectively. That if the County Council says to the Department of Social Welfare, Community Welfare Officers, would you please increase the rest supplement in this case? Then they must do it. They must do it. It's an emergency. We can find money for other emergencies. Let's find money for this. Now, I tomorrow have invited a formerly homeless man to come in to speak to members here. I hope it would be helpful if members wish to meet him in the AV room. He's certainly, I'm not going to name him here, but he's been an advocate for housing, for homelessness. He slept in hostels mainly and in shelters for 2 years. He'll be coming to the AV room tomorrow at 12:30. He certainly has loads of ideas. I'm sure there are others. Maybe some of the men and women on the street could tell us a thing or two about what should be done. They're the coalface. We're not. And we've all met them, we've all spoken to them, but we need to hear their views on it as well. But let's not forget the working poor, the people who really should be at the coalface of contributing to the economic recovery that we hope is coming to this country. But they can't afford to live in a house. I mean, it's madness. It's pure madness. And Minister, if you can solve that problem, we will do whatever we can to support you. But we really need you to solve that problem. Thank you, Senator. Senator Keane.